Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Radiant Marvel with Nikita. Today we will be discussing NCERT Class 12th English textbook Flamingos chapter number 2, which is titled Lost Spring by Anise Young. But before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and most importantly, don't forget to click on the bell icon so that you do not miss out on any update from our end. This chapter, Lost Spring, is divided into two stories. Now both of these stories cover one common theme of child labor. Both these stories talk about one idea, and that is how childhood gets disrupted and exploited in the poor and miserable situation and conditions of a slum. Both of these stories talk about how young children have to be deprived of basic amenities such as even schooling just in order to work and earn some extra pennies for their family to support their families financially. This chapter's first story is titled Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. Now this story is based in the backdrop of the peripheral areas of Delhi, which is the slum area of Simapuri. Simapuri is a home to more than 10,000 rag pickers, majority of whom have fled from the fields of Dhaka or Bangladesh. Now the author usually crosses this area, and one day she stumbles upon this young boy named as Sahib. Now Sahib's full name is Sahib-e-Alam, which means the Lord of the Universe. Now contrary to his name, his present situation is absolutely the opposite. His name identifies him as the ruler, as the Lord of the entire universe. However, his present situation is such that even when he wishes to go and study in a school, there is no school around him in the slum area of Simapuri. Moreover, he is forced to become a rag picker just to support his family and to contribute financially. Now another interesting thing that the author notices here is that Sahib walks barefoot. She realizes that Sahib's mother can afford to buy some footwear to give to Sahib. However, as per tradition, Sahib is now not habitual of wearing any footwear, and that's the reason why him and many other young boys, young rag pickers like Sahib, do not wear any footwear. Rather, they run barefoot throughout Simapuri. As the story proceeds, we see the author realizing that several of the rag pickers staying in Simapuri are devoid of any identity. They do not have appropriate identity cards. However, as she interacts with many of the rag pickers and their families, she realizes that for them survival is more important than having an identity. She soon realizes that those rag pickers who have fled from their fields in Bangladesh find much more value in rag picking as compared to staying back in Bangladesh, where their field could not give them the food for basic survival. For the rag pickers of Simapuri, for young boys like Sahib and their families, she realized that garbage was more precious than gold. For them, garbage was a means of their survival. As the author interacts with Sahib to understand more about his situation, the situation of several of the families living in Simapuri, she soon realizes that how Sahib's eyes light up when he talks about the amusement of finding even a single rupee in the garbage. The story does not end here. After a few days, the author on one fine winter morning again stumbles upon Sahib. This time she realizes that he is standing next to a lawn tennis court. Sahib is completely full of dreams. His eyes light up when he sees people playing tennis. As the author goes on to interact with Sahib further, she realizes that this time the situation has changed. This time Sahib is not barefoot, rather he is wearing the old discarded tennis shoes. Maybe they have been donated or given to Sahib by some young boy. Unlike before, now Sahib is not picking up rags. Rather, he has started to work at a tea stall. When the author met Sahib this time, he was actually holding a steel canister and he was going towards a milk booth. The author noticed something very unusual yet again. She realized that the spark, that the charm in the eyes of Sahib has now been lost. The innocence has somewhere been deprived. Now it feels as if Sahib has been burdened further with extensive responsibility. The steel canister indeed feels heavier as compared to the plastic polythene bag that he used to carry earlier, which simply is a metaphorical expression of the fact that now his burden, that now his responsibility towards financially holding his family, towards financially supporting his family has increased manyfold. Sahib indeed is no longer the master of his own will. Like in the beginning we discussed that how his name was Sahib-e-Alam, which means the Lord of the Universe. the reality this time has yet again taken a 180-degree turn, unfortunately in the negative side, and it feels as if there is no decision or no will that he can impose on his own. So this story, all in all, just highlights one common thread, which is that child labor actually deprives the children of their innocence. It puts unforeseen burden on the children, and instead of educating the child, instead of letting the children live their dreams, they are stumbled into this ugly downward spiral. Now, let us move towards the second story which is covered in this chapter. The second story is titled, I Want to Drive a Car. Like in the first story, we discovered about the story of this young rag picker, Sahib, from the slum areas of Simapuri. In the second story, which is I Want to Drive a Car, we go further and we uncover the story of Mukesh, who is basically a young child laborer involved in the bangle making industry of Firozabad. Firozabad is the center of India's glass blowing industry. The generations living there have spent years working around the furnace, making bangles of every color. Unfortunately, behind those colored bangles lies a completely dark truth. And that dark truth is the fact that there are close to 20,000 young children who are made to work in these glass furnaces. Now, these glass furnaces operate in very high temperatures. There are dingy cells and there is no as such exposure to outside light, which hampers the health, specifically the eyesight of these children. Now, this young boy Mukesh volunteers to take the author to his home. He goes across these stinking streets which are full of families of human beings as well as animals coexisting. There is no drainage or proper sewage system. It is an absolutely sad and an impoverished state of affairs. As the author reaches Mukesh's home, she realizes that he is staying with few of his family members. She meets Mukesh's elder brother's wife or his sister-in-law as well as his grandmother. Somewhere here it feels as if none of the family members ever wish to be seen by the outside world. There is some sort of a predicament here. It feels as if none of the family members, except for Mukesh, really want to improve their living situation. It feels that they are absolutely helpless. They are hopeless. It feels as if there is no ray of light at the end of the tunnel. His grandmother tells the author about the sad situation wherein her husband, who is Mukesh's grandfather, has lost his eyesight due to his work of bangle making. She further goes on to actually put the blame on the destiny. She goes on to question the God-given lineage and wonders if really that God-given pattern, that God-given lineage, that burden, that curse can really be broken. The author soon realizes that for the people of Firozabad, it seems like life is mechanical. Everything is monotonous, there is nothing bright and beautiful for them. Looking at their plight, the author goes on to question them. She wonders, she asks them what is the reason why they have not really organized themselves into a cooperative. They tell her that the reason why they have not organized themselves into a cooperative is simply because there is no leader amongst themselves. They further go on to explain the clutches of the middlemen. They also explain that how they are engulfed into this never-ending cycle, into this downward spiral running from poverty to apathy to greed to injustice. After interacting with the people of Firozabad, the author also realizes that how their caste makes them feel stigmatized in the society. She also goes on to uncover and discover how the clutches of the policemen, the law enforcing agencies, bureaucrats, politicians, and perhaps the administration in general is responsible for the plight of these poor workers of Firozabad. And this actually forms the backbone, this forms the basis why these families have to involve their young children into their own industry so that they can earn a livelihood and support the family financially. The situation in Firozabad seems to be ugly and miserable. However, on the brighter side, there is this ray of hope in Mukesh's eyes. The author realizes that Mukesh has got that daring spirit. He has got that spirit which can defy the norms, which can defy the patterns, which can defy the generational curses that Mukesh's grandmother felt were impossible to break. She soon inquires from Mukesh as to what he wants to become and gets this resounding answer. He says that he wishes to become a motor mechanic. The author further goes on to question if he ever wishes to fly a plane. This, Mukesh felt slightly embarrassed and he'd subtly declined that idea. He expressed that he was content at just being a motor mechanic. Now this line indicates that how being a motor mechanic itself feels like a very distant dream for him looking at his present situation. Feels as if Mukesh is perhaps the only boy who had a ray of hope that something can turn into better. With this, we come towards the end of the discussion for this chapter, Lost Spring. Both of these stories covered under this chapter talk about common themes. They talk about, firstly, the themes of poverty, how generational poverty causes immense suffering to those families which are living in slums. It also talks about the systematic failure at the level of politicians, bureaucrats, as well as the administration in general, which fail to bring these families out of their poverty-like situation. Secondly, it talks about the theme of the importance of generating adequate employment as well as promoting education amongst students as well as promoting education amongst the children of the slum workers. Education is indeed seemingly the only possible way how these families can come out of perpetual poverty, given that they have already been engulfed by middlemen as well as sahukars. Thirdly, these stories talk about the theme of childhood innocence. Both of the main characters here, Sahib in the first half as well as Mukesh in the second half, somewhere show the undefined spirit of childhood innocence. Despite their miserable situations, both of the boys did not seem to lose hope, even when their families felt as if the world had nothing bright and beautiful left. Both of these boys had a dream, they had a vision, and they had that hope that things can turn out to be better. With this, we conclude our discussion on the chapter Lost Spring. If you have any queries, comments, or doubts, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below and I will respond to them. Thank you so much for watching. Before you sign off, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.